So the way I had mapped out, I listened through a couple of times, and what I was hearing from it was, yeah, so it's the G, and just for the sake of kind of touching on the modal stuff again, there's
Yeah.
great context clues about what to do here
Okay.
because you've got a G major, and you can hear the major third in there, so it's clearly major, but then it goes to the F,
Yeah.
so that tells us mixolydian, because
Okay,
of
so we go from the one to the seven. Oh,
so really,
don't think about
there,
that. Okay.
there's a
Yeah.
million ways to think about that, for me, it's funny if you wanted to break it down going that direction, because we know that like this change right here, a major to a major, going in the direction of a
Yep.
whole step, would always be 5 to 4. Anytime I hear that change, a whole step change either in either direction that both chords are major,
Yep.
that lets me know I'm playing with my 4 and my 5 somewhere in there.
Okay.
So here, what you're hearing is 5, and then what's cool about that is if you can pick that apart, or even notice that there's this and this in here, the root and the it's a whole step. That to
Yeah.
me shows me that, and you wouldn't use G major because that F,
Oh, okay.
right? And so that when I hear that, I know right away mixolydian because I'm hearing a
That,
major
that,
chord.
that makes total sense to me because I had tried, like doing the G major from here. Because I knew he's starting his solo and I was trying to use that shape, but it wasn't working all the time. So that
Right, and so all you have to do is just adjust for the flat 7 instead of a natural 7. So over all 3 of those first chords, the G, the F, and the C, mixo is your best friend. It's going to work over the whole thing. I could just stay in that box. But then we've got the E flat, and then I was just going to show you for what it's worth that there's a couple different ways you could maybe think about that next chord, the transition chord. But after playing with different iterations of it, what I'm 99% sure it is E flat major
yeah.
to a D minor,
Oh, was it D minor? I wasn't sure.
but it's not. It's D minor, but with so if you think about your E flat major,
Yep.
the top note of it, which is a G, it's basically a D minor with a G at the top of it.
Oh.
You hear that?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's basically like you could. There's a million ways to think about this chord, and a bunch of things you could even call it. Because it's almost like a D7 with a because it's a sus chord.
Yeah.
Like if you're thinking outside of the context of the chord changes. But when I hear it, I just hear them holding on to that commonality of G, which I think is really slick.
Yeah.
Because if you go to that minor sound, totally changes the feel.
Yeah.
Having that D, because it basically nothing actually even makes that minor once this is held, because you have root, fifth, flat 7, and then that G up top. And none of those are defining of major or minor. The way that I would approach soloing over this, in terms of just something to think about, let mixolydian be your lead. G mixolydian, because that's going to work over almost everything really except the E flat. Because once you're at the E flat, you can think of either, I like to stay in key, meaning like I want to just stick with G but shift. So I would basically do G mixo the whole time, and then once it gets over that E flat, G minor. But what you have to make sure you do if you employ the G minor over that chord is by the time it gets back to the one chord or the G, and when I say one, I just mean in terms of
the tonal center. Yeah.
You have to be positioning yourself to land back in mixolydian land, and a thing that I hear Rick do here, and that I would sort of be inclined to do as well over that, is you build the tension with that minor, and then come back to that major third from G. Go back to your the major third there sounds really sweet because you get this almost minor to major. hear how every time, even though I did like a walk up, I did a minor, back still land on the major,
Yeah. Nice.
And so that's probably the most efficient way, to like be able to squeeze all the juice out of mixo and then just make that one shift. And this is a great thing to practice anyway, because it comes up, like I said, it comes up fairly often, this type of change where it sounds like, okay, I thought I was good with my major or my mixo, but what do I do over that?
Yeah.
And it can be, just like I said, a really cool way to build tension, because there's nothing more tension and release than major to minor or minor to major, because when you start getting into like it's so satisfying.
Yeah.
And, I even think of I don't know if you know the tune Buddy Holly by Weezer.
Oh yeah.
That last chord change, they're building up, he's doing the whole solo, and it's a great solo. But he starts building up, soloing over this. Actually, and he goes, and it's because he's got the minor back to major, and it's so satisfying. Like when I hear that, I'm like,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, of course, because throw that minor in the G.
And you know what's kind of funny about these changes is, like, you could play. It would probably get fatiguing to the ear if you didn't give any release, but you can play blues over this too. Like it kind of is blues. Like you'll hear Rick even pass over some pentatonic stuff, like even over the non E flat chords. You can. Right, and that's like, I threw that one major for the major third for a second, but all those minor sounds can work. A lot of times what I like to do is still kind of stay in the framework of mixo, but throw in little bends from the minor to the major.
I gotta play with that. Yeah.
So like kind of thinking about your pentatonic, that's your minor third. So if you want to play around with kind of like I'll do it real quick. But then, and so that can create tension too, where you can maybe even think of pentatonic blues a little bit, and then at that point, then that'll create tension to just where mixo will sound like such a relief if you go intentionally to like some of the like the major third or the fourth. It's a little sweet.
Yep.
One cool thing to remember too is there's some very good opportunities for chromatic stuff, especially from when I'm in this world up here, G starting that realm. It's probably one of my favorite like boxes to kind of build things in. But if you're thinking about minor, right, like if you're walking up minor, that becomes this little thing right here. Yep, that's a great opportunity for resolve, like on the end, because that inherently is a walk up through minor to major, root to flat three, or minor third, major third. Like I was just gonna say, what a good practice would be for this is soloing here. In that first position there, soloing up here, like, so basically I would map out G mixo and G minor here. And then, and then practice moving between them in that realm. Do that again, like maybe in this middle section, all that, and then this one up here, like. With just thinking about G mixo and then G minor. because if you can see, and then of course this one down here will be the same as 12, and that'll come in handy because by the end he's going doing the uh, and so on and so forth, and that's like where your peaks will happen.
Yeah, it feels like a G major type of thing right there. Like
right. That's it. Basically, minus the flat 7, because of the change to F. It is, it's just all major, but just with that flat 7, you know. Yep, and then basically, the thing that becomes important to really practice, to try to get good at, is escaping the minor and landing intentionally on something that shows you that it's major, which is that third. Like that's the satisfying note. And it doesn't matter where it is. On the neck. That's like the resolve point. And not that has to be the only thing. Roots are great too. Fifths are fine. Yep. But if you're really trying to say, like, to give that relief or tap into that emotion, which to me is a sense of like, all right, things are going to be okay. It's getting minor and getting hairy, like, but I will triumph. That's like the third. And so intentionally, try to like see what it feels like to like look for those opportunities to go between the minor third and the major third.
Find the B's all over the neck essentially for this, right? So know where those happy landing spots would be.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, it becomes more of a feel thing than a note thing, meaning like I know where that position is, like, like as opposed to being like, okay, I have to think about.
Yeah.
Something I like to advocate for that can be overlooked a lot, if you need a moment to still be able to build, but maybe recalibrate or have a minute, like if you felt like, okay, I got a little bit lost in the major minor thing. One of my favorite things to do anyways is this octave sound, getting like, so if we were thinking about G, like just want to either this, where you have root and root,
Yep.
Just hammering on those over a change like this can be a really cool thing to do, whether you're playing them at the same time and doing some kind of rhythm or separating the notes. So like, even between the root and the 2.
The American Girls. I used to have to play that. No, I loved that tune. I didn't have to play, but like American Girls get that deep.
Right. Yeah, and it's honestly like Trey uses that all the time, like Tweezer Reprise and stuff. It's just, And what's funny is that the resolve on that one is minor, and then eventually it's time when he goes to the major third.
Oh yeah.
Same idea, but those are great ways to build tension and to have like a moment, like I said, to sort of reset the palate of the listener, to have just almost like it's like a palate cleanser. But also, if you start to get comfortable, even just within the 3 notes of root 2 and either major third or minor third, there's so much that can be done with that too. Like. Two in minor, 4 major third, and I'm using the same position. I'm like with my index finger following that note, and just watching.
You're basically doing like the G major scale there. And
I use my index finger to look, because the pinky, because of the weird thing that the guitar does on these top strings, you have that wider berth there.
Yeah.
So I feel like it needs, I like to I have to choose one. I can either look at this one or look at this one, but I can't try to think of it.
And that's landing on that major third again.
Right. So just kind of seeing that you've got root 2, minor third if you want it, or major third. They're a half step apart.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
there's so much to do. And then, just one last thing, kind of thinking about it blues-esque and hearing a little bit about how Rick was approaching it. Basically, this kind of classic blues box where you use the index finger on the high octave there, and then use the 2, 3, 4, the 6 and the 5. So yeah, those you kind of use those notes to go between a little bit. So
Oh yeah. And you also have the
and then if you wanted to, not only that but also the inverse of that.
oh yeah.
And that can be a super cool thing because if you again just if you don't even really think about these two notes too much, but just think like root 2 third or root 2 minor third, right? There's like if I just stay in that little box here, and then minor.
That's the vocal melody.
Oh, is it? I had never heard this song till today. I mean,
but not during the song. At the very end of that song, he's doing that, and the band's doing like what you were just doing. It's like